Welcome to Adapt It, the podcast where we explore adaptations of various forms. I'm today's host, Tom, and with me is...
Pat.
Today we'll be discussing Macbeth, the play from circa 1606, as well as the film version Throne of Blood, or Castle of the Spider's Web, directed by Akira Kurosawa in 1957, as well as the Roman Polanski version of Macbeth from 1971, and Bill Morissette's 2001 film Scotland, PA. Alright, so I was going to talk about crowd responses to Shakespeare in Shakespeare's day. I was looking through first-hand accounts of it, but I think
is this Tom Teaches moment?
Tom Teaches Teeter.
Tom Teaches Theater. We need to get a theme song for it.
Yes, KJ, can you generate a theme song?
Please. AI can do it. I am positive AI can do this.
Oh, KJ's pretty good at it. KJ does pretty good like little music things. Like he did the music for the show you guys are listening to right now. So I have faith in KJ's musical skill. KJ actually built. KJ, I'm going to embarrass you. When we were kids, KJ built a computer program for electronic bagpipes, not knowing anything about music theory, and just had like, this is note 1, this is note 2, this is note 3, this is how they relate to each other, and plugged it in and made it work and all of that. So KJ's musical talents are
prodigious.
Yes, indeed. But now that we've embarrassed you, good friend, I am going to jump into Tom Teaches Teeter, but instead I think I want to talk about the sources of Macbeth. It's a weird tangent, but I think it's kind of interesting. So more than any other play, Macbeth was written specifically for James I, for two major reasons. Firstly, James I, as formerly James VI of Scotland, saw himself as descended from Banquo and Fleance, and that this was actually the belief at the time, that he was Fleance's direct descendant. And this is because in 1526 or 27, someone named Hector Boece wrote a book called Scotorium Historia about the history of Scotland, in which Banquo and Fleance are introduced. Scholars today tend to see these as inventions of the author, but in the 16th and 17th century, people actually believed in these figures and believed that Scottish nobility was in part informed literally by the dictates of a few witches. In the Boece book, there are witches who tell Banquo and Fleance about them becoming, or about Fleance's descendants becoming king. And so,
which makes sense, by the way, because when I read that, I mean, I've seen productions before, although most of them I feel like I fell asleep during, but including that one you and I saw in London.
Yeah, we saw it together in London. Yeah.
Did you stay awake for it, or did you?
I was going in and out. I fell asleep.
Significant chunk of that production.
I went out too. Yeah.
I never read Macbeth, and I remember when I left that performance, I didn't know what Macbeth was about. I slept through so much of it. But I've seen some other productions since then, so I know what it is. But I kind of had forgotten about the whole Banquo you will beget sons. Like I'd just kind of forgotten about it. And so when I was reading it for this, I thought. And I got to the end, I thought, did I miss something? Is there just something that I didn't get? And then I thought, are they trying to like suggest here that Malcolm is actually the Banquo's son? I'm like, what did I miss? And I thought, or maybe Fleance is going to marry them, but there's only sons. So I'm like, I guess I missed it somewhere in there. And now I understand. I'm like, oh, I didn't get. No, obviously I didn't know that reference, which makes a lot more sense now that I know it. But at first I thought, I think I just missed that reference somewhere in there. Now I know.
Yeah, I don't know how popular Boece's book, and audience, his name is spelled Boece, so I'm pronouncing that however I feel like. But his idea was then picked up by somebody who's very famous, Raphael Holinshed, and that's Shakespeare's great source. And he basically takes it kind of word for word. The funny thing about it, though, is in Holinshed, or Holland's Head, I've heard it pronounced both ways, is that Banquo helps Macbeth kill Duncan. So now, obviously, we see why Shakespeare would have changed that, considering that James is on the throne at the time and saying my descendant is Banquo, and the reason why I'm king of Scotland is because I'm descended from Banquo. So you might want to change that. But this was widely accepted that Banquo helped Macbeth kill Duncan, and that's why there wasn't a King Duncan anymore, and why there was a King Macbeth, and that was lifted right in there, as well as the witches stuff. The witches stuff is some of it's weird. It is Shakespeare is quoting it directly from that text. Now, obviously, this doesn't match the actual history. Macbeth apparently was a fairly good ruler. He was the rightful king. Duncan actually invaded him and was killed when he invaded Macbeth's territory. But Bowie's
But
thought,
history is written by those who have hanged heroes.
yes, exactly.
To quote another wonderful interpretation of Scottish history.
Yes, oh yeah, I know. That is exactly the story of William Wallace as history understands it. So don't even question the movie Braveheart. It is basically a documentary. But apparently Bowie's changed this kind of Scottish history because he thought it would make it look better in the eyes of the Scottish nobility. And that's what you have there. The second reason why this play was written specifically for James was James the First, James the Sixth of Scotland, was obsessed with witchcraft. And while he was king of Scotland, or only Scotland, he published the most important book on demonology and witchcraft in the 16th and 17th century, a book called Daemonology. It's about 80 pages or so. It was first published in 1597, republished in 1603. And Daemonology is a Socratic dialogue between Philomatus and Epistemon, who are discussing the various aspects of witches through the course of three books. And this was considered an extremely important book. It was considered extremely scholarly when it was discussed and first published. And James took it seriously. He oversaw, while King of Scotland, over 450 witch trials. When he came to England, however, as king in 1603, he did not oversee quite as many witch trials because the English were not quite ready to take up this idea of witches as being real. He
Or
stopped
maybe
talking.
they just didn't have any ergot in their grain.
Oh, very good.
Maybe that was the problem.
Yes. Salem witch trial reference, yeah. Um, but so he stopped talking about it. There was a major witch trial in 1612 in Lancaster, and a bunch of people were tried and killed for being witches, apparently. But as his kingship continued, this idea of talking about witches or his accomplishment as a scholar, which is based upon a very, very detailed understanding of how witches and demonic things work, that kind of began to fade into the background, and he tried to highlight other scholarly activities on his part. However, we get this weird play where his descendant is um, is basically told he's going to be king because of a bunch of witches have selected him to be so, and it's based on a text in which his descendant unjustly murders someone, unjustly murders a king in order to become king of Scotland. So James, as effective a ruler as he was, and apparently he was a very effective ruler, was kind of a weird guy, at least in terms of witchcraft. Okay, so starting with the play itself, Macbeth. This is our first. Oh, we should even start before then. The tragedy of Macbeth, right? This idea of
Oh yeah.
tragedy. We're
Is this our first
moving.
tragedy?
It's
Oh
our first
yes.
tragedy. We're
It's our first
moving from
tragedy.
comedy to tragedy. Our third genre jump for this podcast.
It's a form, not a genre.
Okay. But
That would be me quoting one of our college professors who was
yes.
very insistent. Whenever anybody called tragedy a genre, and he'd say it's not a genre.
Hmm.
Genre is the topics, is what the play is about. It's about the topics in the play. The form is tragedy.
Yeah. And we could call the genre probably a Christian play to a certain extent. If we look at Julius Caesar, Antony and Cleopatra and Coriolanus as the Roman genre, this Hamlet, Othello, they're kind of more of the Christian tragedies, and then Lear is just a weirdo. That doesn't
Yeah,
match.
Lear is just
Even though he's still Christian, but he's living in a pre-Christian world because
it's
that's
a
just how.
family play.
Yeah, it's a family play.
The family drama.
But anyway, let's jump into this change to tragedy. And there's something we were talking about on text, which you had mentioned is the titles of these things. The titles of comedies tend to be a sort of general mirthy little witty thing or a pun or something like that. The titles of tragedies are focused on the tragic hero, on the person
Well, it's more
itself.
it's what I noticed, and I'm guessing this because this is just the text that I have has them organized based on how they're organized in the folio. And so it has things like Cymbeline amongst the tragedies. Cymbeline isn't really a tragedy at all. Neither really is Troilus and Cressida. They're not really I mean, they're kind of tragedies, but not really. But Cymbeline's pretty much comedy. I mean, it's a madcap, zany comedy. And so it's hard to kind of classify them that way. So I kind of was just, and I was just flipping through and I realized, oh, what the author, what the composers of the folio did, because there's no way this is coincidence. Any play that had the name of the person or people in the title was a tragedy. And anyone that didn't, other than the histories, like the histories are easy to classify. But if it had the name of the person in the title, it was a tragedy. And if it didn't, it was a comedy. And so that's why, but it works pretty much for the comedies. For the tragedies, you do end up with a couple that are a little weird, like Cymbeline really should be with the comedies probably, and maybe Troilus and Cressida. But for the most part, it does actually work with the tragedies too. So it's kind of weird that yeah, the way the titles are. The titles are always titled after the tragic hero. So you can there's a different focus with tragedies than with comedies, and I think the folio is stressing that.
Mhm. What do you think the major difference, besides the obvious comedies end in a marriage, tragedies end in death, or a bunch of deaths, do you see with this division?
I think, I mean, one of the things that often gets kind of bandied about is that comedies tend to be inherently conservative in the sense that the point of the comedy is to return to the status quo. That's what you're essentially trying to get back to. You're trying to get to a standard social organization. That's one of the major things that often happens with a comedy. With a tragedy, that's often not the case. That at the end of it, you have sort of some sort of major upheaval has happened, and you've sort of attempted to return back, but you're never going to get there. That's almost what the tragic part of the tragedy is things are lost. Something is fundamentally lost and something has changed, and you can't go back to the way that it used to be. That's sort of what ultimately happens in a tragedy, as opposed to a comedy where you ultimately get back to where you're supposed to be and everything is fine. Tragedies don't work that way. Something gets lost in the way.
Yes, I would agree with that. That you are the evil in the world is burned out, but you lose a lot of good. And it's odd because in a lot of the tragedies, the world doesn't restore to how it was. That's certainly the case in
Well,
Hamlet.
no, it certainly doesn't return to how it was, but it returns to us. I mean, at
It
least in
returns to
Shakespeare's one,
stasis. It
it
returns to
returns to
equilibrium.
us. Yeah, it returns to a stability. It returns to equilibrium, but not what was.
Yeah, not what it was.
What
That was
was is gone.
misspoken. Yeah,
Yeah, what
yeah.
was is gone. But you return to, yeah, stasis, I think is probably the right, or equilibrium is the right way to phrase it. But you're not returning to where you were. Something new has been created or generated out of it.
Yeah, something is, a lot of times something is ended.
Yeah, or
And
something is ended. This is
mhm,
just probably a better way to say it. It's not necessarily that something new is generated. It's that
mhm.
something is ended.
Something is ended. And we see this with Denmark as was is done at the end of Hamlet. That court is over. With Othello, this great man is done. Obviously, like Cyprus or Venice isn't over, but the possibilities of this person from this foreign land taking authority in a Western world, that's over with. That's not going to happen. And with Macbeth, we kind of return more to a status quo, I think, there. We get sort of kings back, but we don't get, um, we have lost a lot along the way. I think there's also something along with the tragedies that there's a focus on the individual. Now, obviously,
Yeah.
this is apparent in the titles of them, but with As You Like It, and you pointed this out, we have a hierarchy of marriage. There's Orlando and Rosalind who have the best marriage, and we keep going down till we get the shepherds who have kind of a, all right, you're there and a shepherd, so I'll marry you type thing. And we have a sort of social architecture that's put into place. Marriage reveals social architecture. And the problems of politics sort of just go away. There's effectively a Deus Ex Machina monk, I think, that gets rid of everything in As You Like It. But we are seeing a
Forgot
social
about that. Yeah,
dynamic.
there is. Yeah.
Yeah. And you have odd exceptions. I think this is because of Shakespeare's genius. So you have something like Jaques, which is a person who's kind of an individual. He's an individual striver, and he doesn't belong. He has to be booted out or elect to leave in order for stasis to return. And stasis never really went away that much in As You Like It. It doesn't seem like the woods of Arden are a horrible place. And it's also true of Much Ado About Nothing. It's yes, Claudio is going to believe Hero is sleeping with somebody else, but that problem goes away very quickly. And it is about all of these different couples getting together, even though we like Benedict and Beatrice a lot more. They're a lot more interesting. When we
And
get
this, by
to
the way, is arguably we haven't gotten to them yet. But when we get, and we're going to do, I think, only one romance. We'll do Tempest. But that's the difference between the romances is that they're comedies in the sense that everything sort of ends up okay, and you get all the marriages and you get all the things you're supposed to get. But something is also lost. There is also a sense here that, in most, it's because of time. It's because it takes so long for them to resolve the romantic issues that things are lost. And the thing that's lost is time. Time was lost throughout the many, many years that they're trapped on the island, or the many, many years that, is it Leonidas? Is, alone and doesn't have his daughter or his wife. And they do get returned, but eventually, but there's a significant loss of time in between there. Sort of like when Odysseus returns. There's the great scene when Odysseus returns and he finally meets um uh blanking on his
Penelope?
son. But
Oh no,
no, his
Telemachus.
Telemachus, and he finally meets Telemachus, and they meet at the goat herd's shed, and they both like weep when they finally see each other. And there's this sense, I think, that like they're weeping for the time that's lost. And so I think that's the sense of the romances, but in his standard comedies, that's not there because everything just sort of returns back essentially to where it was, and nothing's really lost. Yeah, maybe Jacques is lost. There's some sort of loss in there, and that can happen, but for the most part, it's just
Mhm.
everything's fine. But the
And
tragedies, yes, yeah,
yeah,
I would agree.
no time passes
Yeah,
really
no
in a
time really has
comedy.
passed. Yeah,
As You Like It is a day. I think Midsummer is a day.
day, yeah,
Yeah.
it's a day.
Twelfth Night is a few days, maybe.
I
Oh
think
no,
it's
no,
supposed to be a
she's
little
there for a
longer
few
because she says I was
months.
there for
Yeah.
6 months.
Yes, yeah, that's
She
right.
says she's there for 6 months, but
It's not
I mean,
that long.
6 months is not that long.
Yeah.
Like I think we can forgive that. It's not
Mm.
20 years. It's not
It's
30 years
16
that these other
years
ones.
in Winter's Tale, yeah.
Yeah, it's not these incredibly long periods of time that have passed by and all the opportunities that were missed between them. There's
Mm.
no sense of that in any of
Yeah.
these clearly.
And it makes sense that the romances come towards the end of Shakespeare's life, when
Yeah.
the actual tragedy of living isn't interesting. It's just you lose a lot of time and you lose opportunity.
Yeah.
Opportunity cost becomes the tragedy of an actual life lived. But we have the tragedies, and the tragedies also have this stress on individual greatness. And and what's so tragic is the loss of these kind of individual amazing individual people, I guess you would say, because they're not
Yeah.
necessarily good, and they're often not. Othello's probably the
No, they're sort of, but
closest of the
They're
group.
like Greek heroes. Greek heroes are not good all the time. They're just great. There's no sense there that they're good though all the time. Sometimes they're just great, and they're
Yes.
not. But that doesn't mean good. So yeah, I would agree.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Othello is probably the closest. Yeah, he's the
Othello's
closest to being legitimately good.
Othello's an exception. You can make an argument maybe for Brutus, because Brutus
Yeah,
seems to really
I
be
think that's
trying to
true.
do something for the Roman Republic to keep Rome as he thinks it should be.
Yeah, I
But
would agree
we
with that too.
yeah, when we get to Lear, Lear is an idiot. Um, Hamlet is about as self-indulgent as a person can be who isn't murdering people to take the crown. And then we have Macbeth, the person who is murdering people to take the
People to take the
crown.
crown.
So,
What about
yeah.
Timon of Athens? You skipped
And
Timon of
oh,
Athens. I
Timon
mean,
of Athens.
he's
He's a
he's a
great
good guy.
whiner.
He's kind of an idiot, though. I mean,
Yeah.
he's also just the like he's a good guy, but he's an idiot.
He might be an
He's
exception. It's maybe why people don't because he's an idiot. He acquires some intelligence after he loses everything, but there isn't he's not like Hamlet or one of these people you're like, oh, I admire him. He's just a
no,
rich guy who gets taken advantage of because he's dopey. It's really
but he's magnanimous. I mean, I think you're supposed to.
yes.
It's the idea of virtues without other virtues is partially what it is. It's the idea, so he has magnanimity. He is extremely magnanimous, but he's also not wise. He's also foolish, and he's not temperate, and so therefore his magnanimity is destructive. I think that's the point of like someone like Timon of Athens. I mean, I was just, but I think that's what
Oh,
I
I
think
think
that's
you're
what you're
right.
supposed to see. I don't think it works because yeah,
It's not particularly. It's just
he's
not that
just a
dramatic
rich
a play.
yeah, and it's not the dramatic play, and he's also, yeah, I mean, I think that's a great way to look at it. He's a rich dude who gets taken advantage of. We don't tend to be overly sympathetic to that.
Yeah.
I mean, we watched a whole movie about that where people just, last season, where
Yes.
it's rich people being taken advantage of and having all their money stolen from them. So,
Yeah. We tend to enjoy those things more than feel sympathetic. But I think your point about he is virtue without balance actually applies to Macbeth very well. And I don't know how much Aristotle Shakespeare actually read, but there is a sort of idea of virtue as the holy median, right? The between two extremes. And I think that's what's going on with Macbeth as well. And we could see that compared to Duncan. So Duncan is he's not really the warrior king. He was described in Holinshed as a sort of milksop who, who just is like a little afraid of blood. He's a little, he's a little too virtuous. He's a little too close to Richard II. I think Duncan
yeah,
is
that's fair.
probably that way. It's a little more subtle in this because we just don't have time we don't have enough time to spend with Duncan to get it. But he seems to be that way. And then Macbeth is obviously the other extreme who once the opportunity arises to take power, he has it. We can see those ingredients in Macbeth because he is a great warrior. So you have that scene in Act One. We don't see it, but they describe it as when he gets oh God, who is it, MacDonald or whoever the traitor is in the beginning.
Is it Donald Bane? Is
Donald Bane
that?
is the son. That's the second son
Oh, that's the
of
second son. Then I don't
Duncan.
remember who it is.
I
But
think
yeah, the
it's
Thane of Cawdor.
yeah, the Thane of
That
Cawdor.
thing.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
we'll go
thank
with
you.
the Thane of Cawdor. Yeah.
Yeah, Cawdor.
Yeah, give him his title. Give him his title.
Yeah, the Thane. They describe him as he gets in a fight with him, then he cuts him in half, and everybody starts cheering about how great it was. He cuts him
Oh
in
no,
half.
so it can't be the Thane of Cawdor because he doesn't die.
Oh, that's right. Well, one of the guys they
One
kill
of the dudes. He
one of the
kills a dude. He
dudes. He
cuts a dude in
kills
half.
him.
Got it.
He
Yeah.
cuts him in half, and it's this like real brutal display, and it's cheered on. And there's something kind of barbaric about it. But if we could see him against Duncan, if like you see Macbeth and Duncan as foils for one another, I don't think either of these people are ideal kings. Macbeth is much worse. And it is really bad that Duncan is this holy man who Macbeth kills. You cannot kill a guest in your house. You can't kill your king. These are very bad things. But I don't think Duncan is an ideal king. And I think
No.
when you're in a world where Duncan is ruling, you're in a world where things are going to go wrong. If it's Macbeth, if it's somebody else, there is a sort of sense of imbalance. There's a sort of sense at the beginning of this play that rebellion is happening because we don't have the best king. We don't have a tough king in charge. And so things are just going to go wrong, right? There's not equilibrium already, and we need kind of a holy mean between the milksop Duncan and the brutal Macbeth. And think where this play starts. Another interesting thing too is I didn't realize some of the rebels are actually hiring Irish to come and fight.
No, I don't
Like,
remember reading that. Yeah,
no, they're using another term. I can't. No, no. Obviously, I forgot the term because
Hibernians. No, I mean, I
they
gotta.
do use the term Hibernian, but they
I
use
would say I feel like I
another
would have got that
term.
one. Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they use that, but they use another term that would have been recognizable as Irish. And you also then have to the south England, who later in the play they go to England and recruit people to Macduff recruits people from England to come and challenge Macbeth and what have you. And so you have Scotland is between, it's this weird space between super civilized England, at least according to Shakespeare, and the Irish, which the people of Shakespeare's day thought of as effectively heathen animals.
I mean, they still thought that for a very long time.
They thought, I mean,
We were
it's,
talking. You should see. There's a great one where I think it's Charlotte Bronte married someone from Ireland,
mhm.
and so she actually went to Ireland at one point, and she was shocked that they could make tea there. There's like a great letter where she was like, "They know how to make tea. It's amazing. Like they actually have the things to make tea." I think she thought she was literally going to be going to like a pygmy, village or something. Like there's
Yeah.
literally this just like they're fighting with spears and sticks, and that's what I think she thought she was going to. So I don't think that was a long couple hundred years later, and they're still thinking that.
Yeah, I mean, Cromwell a few decades later would kill a few 100,000 Irish without apology.
Yeah, they
So
did that a lot.
they did that a lot, yeah. So I think then Scotland, and I think this plays into some of the themes of the natural world. Scotland is this like liminal, it's between the absolutely barbaric, which is kind of coming in at the beginning of this play, and the absolute civilized, which is England. It's sort of balancing there.
Liminal space.
The
You were going
liminal
to say
space, yeah.
you were going to say it, and
I
then
was
you
going to say it,
stopped
and I
yourself
stopped myself because,
because I make fun of it.
yeah, well,
You academics love your liminal
yeah.
spaces.
Yeah, I had to, KJ does. You do too, KJ. You do too. You would defend me, Kevin, if you were here.
It's
Um,
not that I dislike the liminal
it's-
spaces. I don't disagree with it, but it has become a very much a like this liminal space.
yeah, everybody's looking. Yeah, they're trying to
Stairways are
find
liminal
Waldo.
spaces. Bathrooms are liminal spaces. Like everything.
Yeah.
Mirrors, everything is a liminal space. Anything where I'm not sitting down is a liminal space.
Yeah.
Anything that's not a highway or a
Mm.
bed is a liminal space.
But
Living rooms are liminal spaces. We
mm.
don't. Porches are liminal. Sorry.
But and then also, of course, the play opens with the witches.
They're great. I love the
Yeah.
opening. It's just rereading it. I do love the witches. It's by far my favorite thing of these plays, and I love what the if different movies do with them. I think the witches are the thing you can have the most fun with. I mean, which makes sense. They're just the things you can have the most fun with when you stage these or film these.
Yeah, that's. Have you seen the Coen brothers version of
No.
Macbeth? Oh, they have. It's not great, but they have one witch, and she's like a contortion artist who has this really deep
Cool.
voice, and it's this kind of expressionistic thing, and she makes her arms like wiggle, like they wiggle like the wings of birds and things like that, and they have a bird sound they put in when she
It's
does
pretty
that,
cool.
and then she stands over a lake, and when she's talking, reflected in the lake is two reflections, and they become the three witches. Is this conversation?
No,
It's
that's
a
cool.
really cool thing.
You can really do some just unique things with it.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Another favorite I saw on stage
you can
once.
also completely and utterly botch it because I've seen some. I saw a production on in London, Rory Kinnear's, and it was bad. Like it was really really bad. That was the one with the fetuses on fishing poles. Um,
Oh, why did they
yeah, it
have
was.
fetuses on fishing poles?
I think it was supposed to be the dead baby thing with like the baby in the second when the witches come and they're like, "Speak not to him." But it was
Oh,
just weird when you have them all like wandering around on strings and they're like, "Speak not to him," and
hmm.
it was a very they did it as like a post-apocalyptic like as if I was like, "Oh, so you've played the video game Fallout and decided to set Macbeth in that." That was
Uh,
essentially what it was. And it was pretty painful to watch.
oh,
So you can overdo it, but
oh,
if you good hands, it's really fun to do the witches.
I saw the Patrick Stewart production, and I had a lot of trouble with that production. But one thing that was cool was they do the whole battle thing where you hear about Macbeth's successes
Mhm.
secondhand, and it's taking place in sort of obviously fascist country of no name, whatever,
Yeah.
fascist Scotland, I guess. And so there's these, these nurses are like treating patients on the battlefield as they're talking about Macbeth's success. And as the soldiers go off, you see one nurse just pull the plug out of a machine, and the guy starts shaking and collapses. And then the nurses take off their masks and go, "When should we three meet again?" And realize,
Whoa,
oh, and it was a pretty effective
that's
moment.
pretty good.
Yeah, I like that. But yes,
What
you're
about
right.
the Gargoyles cartoon show? They do a lot.
I don't know what that is. What is the
You've
Gargoyles?
never seen the Gargoyles
I
cartoon
don't think I've
show?
ever heard of it. What is
Oh, it
that?
was big in like it was like I mean not big. I mean it was like the mid 90s I think. I think it was like it was on like Disney Afternoon. And there was this whole cartoon and it was about these like gargoyles get transplanted to like modern day Manhattan. But they have this whole weird like Shakespeare thing and Macbeth becomes like an action hero and travels through time and he becomes like an immortal and Puck's in it. It's really really weird. Um,
I've never heard of this.
oh yeah, this
They
is
they're gargoyles like the like winged
yeah, they're winging things,
beasts.
and so during the day they turn to stone, but at night they come alive, and they're charged with protecting their castle, and they're betrayed in the Middle Ages and the Vikings smash most of them, but some of them survive, and and then they end up surviving into modern day. It's like this whole thing, but they end up going on like a magic boat ride at one point. Again, I'm not saying this is particularly good, but it was entertaining for like a 10-year-old and they meet Macbeth and they meet the witches and there's like a whole sequence with Macbeth and Puck is in there and
Hmm.
yeah,
Well, all right. I will have to.
gotta check it out,
I
man.
have to
Gotta
check
check.
that out. I don't. Is was Disney a channel? I mean, I
I
know
don't know.
there's
We didn't have
Disney
cable. I
Plus
didn't have
now.
cable. I
Oh,
didn't have
okay. So
cable
it
as a kid,
wasn't
so
an independent channel then.
no. I think this was on UPN or UPN.
Okay.
On
Was that the whatever? Yeah. So I will audience check out Gargoyles for an adaptation of Macbeth I knew nothing about.
or don't.
Or
No,
don't,
no, this
whatever.
is not a recommendation.
Yeah. Um, but yeah. So that the witches are are a lot of fun, and I have to say I think the she should have died hereafter, tale told by an idiot speech.
Yeah.
I that might be my favorite speech in Shakespeare.
Yeah. I could get behind that.
Yeah, that is, I mean, I think it's the most creepy articulation of nihilism I've ever heard. Because typically when you hear like there's no meaning in the world, it's like a French eye roll basically. It's like,
Yeah, and it
oh,
comes across as the like we believe in nothing, Klabowski, nothing. Like it just comes. It's like, oh come on,
yeah.
like you do, like
You believe in money and
you
that
believe.
gets
Yeah, you believe it all. We believe in nothing, but she lost her toe. And it always has this like that kind of feel to it. Very self-serving, or it has a Jacques kind of feel to it. Like the sans eyes, sign, sans eyes, sans hair, sans teeth, sans everything. And it kind of comes across as a little melodramatic. So I would agree. That is a very good.
But
It's a very good speech.
this is different because he's figuring it out in the moment when his wife dies.
Yeah,
Right? When he figures out she's dying, he realizes that there's really no meaning to anything. It's not just that nothing matters or we're just going to die and it's never. It's like no, there's a governor to this world, but it's an idiot and it doesn't mean anything. Like I love that. I
yeah,
know what he means. It's a metaphor for there is no real God. That's there's no benevolent force that's guiding it. But I just love the metaphor of a lack of meaning. It just isn't. There's nothing there. This just giant babbling idiot who's spewing us all out. It's not an absence of force. It's a dumb force that's just doing things. It's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful metaphor. It's really chilly. It really, really bothers me, even as many times as I've read it. And that's, I think, my favorite speech in Shakespeare for that reason.
I would have to really think about that as to what my favorite one is. But I would agree that could certainly be very high on that list.
It's one of those, it's to be or not to be speeches. They both work as argument speeches. They're like, I'm going to say something, I'm going to think about it, I'm going to debate it, and I'm going to come to a conclusion through the course of this speech. It almost comes off as a debate, that both of those speeches. And those, I think, tend to be the best because he sort of generates a poetic argument in those cases that are
I
true
bet
to the
there's a
character.
good. There might be a Lear one though. Lear's got so many good
Yeah.
speeches.
Well, when he holds the
Yeah, that's what
the
I'm
f-
thinking.
the feather over Cordelia's mouth
Yeah.
and just and thinks it's moving, that's another really beautiful, beautiful thing. He's
Yeah, I think
not.
there's a number of those. I think Lear's got a number. Even some of his speeches at the Storms, I really like
Mhm,
some of his. I think Lear is his best written
mhm,
play. I think that's when we'll get to it when we get to it. But I think Lear is his best written
mhm.
play. It's his best piece of literature. And I just think some of those speeches at the Storms, I think are really might be there. But I would probably have to lay them all out and like see which ones.
Surgeon. Yeah. Yeah. And another thing, the Lady Macbeth character is a lot of fun too. That is one of the better. The tragedies don't seem to generate as many interesting females, with the exception of Cleopatra, is probably
Yeah. But
the big
she
exception.
sort of has a Lady Macbeth-esque quality, just in a different way. She's not ambitious. She already has everything she wants. She just wants to keep it. But yeah, she is a very interesting character. But yeah, I mean, like Ophelia's fine. Yeah, but there's nothing particularly strong there. Gertrude is fine, but not particularly
Juliet's
interesting.
good.
Yeah, Juliet is good. She's probably the only. I mean, although yeah, well, Mercutio is kind of fun, but that place has a not a great preponderance of great characters. Um, but yeah, Juliet is fun. You know, there's certainly good ones, but Lady Macbeth is probably his finest tragic female character.
She has the same sins he has. She kind of shares in it in his ambition. You could say that maybe about Cleopatra and Antony too. And Juliet doesn't really have a negative ambition or something like that. She just wants to be with Romeo. But I,
That might be her mistake.
yeah,
Uh,
that is sure. Yeah, that's a dumb thing to do.
it is a
Um,
dumb, it is a dumb way to set the plot of a play. Your female character is so obviously superior to the male character and should know that. Um, but yeah, it's. I think it's just even she does share the same sins, although she sort of thinks she doesn't. I think that's the beauty of the character. She thinks she's. It's got a very Raskolnikov kind of feel. Like she really does. Like when you read this play, you go, yeah, this is very Crime and Punishment. There's a very strong link here, and they're echoing. They're echoing one another. Well, obviously, I guess this isn't echoing that one, but. Across the ages they speak to one another, but there's this sense here that she thinks she's different, she thinks she's exempt from morality, and she finds out she isn't. So that's why I think she's one of the more interesting ones. Like Cleopatra, her realization is less interesting than Lady Macbeth's sort of arc. And even Juliet's arc. Like Juliet's arc is less interesting. This is a real character who learns a lot about themselves and they don't like it in the end. I think she's probably his best.
yeah, yeah. The Raskolnikov comparison is really good. I didn't think of that, but that's absolutely correct. Right? She does think she's above these kind of moral situations. She just has to get this doofus
She just
to
has to do it,
do
and
it.
once you do it, you don't need to worry about it
Yeah,
anymore.
and
And
that
that is
isn't the
not true.
case. No,
That is
no.
not true, and that's the
That's the tragedy of both of them. Um, it was Raskolnikov would be a tragedy, I don't think. But
well, it isn't because of how it ends.
yeah,
Because well, I don't want to ruin it, but it's 800 pages of delight.
Mhm.
It's one of my favorite books, but it is a very long book. But that's actually not 800.
It's
That's actually one of his
400.
shorter
That's
ones. It's one of his
yeah,
shortest. One of
yeah.
his shorter.
Brothers K is the
Brothers K is like 800
eight
pages,
nine hundred
and
pages.
Demons and
Is pretty long too. That's about
Demons and
800
Idiot
pages.
are also pretty darn long. They're 600 pages probably, but Crime and Punishment is his easiest read by far. But I think that could be a tragedy. It could very easily turn into a tragedy. um, but he doesn't let it. And so I think that's but it you could go down he could go down the same road that Macbeth goes down, but he doesn't. Um,
Or he could go down the same road Lady Macbeth goes
or Lady
down.
Macbeth goes down, I
Yeah,
say.
it's that he finds redemption. He finds this kind of he has this problem to deal with, and in the end, he does find a sort of Christian redemption. And both Crime and Punishment and Macbeth are working within a Christian world
Yeah.
in which sin finds out and has to be forgiven or what have you. It seems like there is such hope for the Christian backbone of society in Crime and Punishment,
Yeah.
and in the Brothers K, and in all of his books, really, after The Underground Man. And they're in this book, they're the natural world. There almost seems to be a Manichaeanism in this book. There seems to be these forces of good and Christian redemption, and then there's just like the devil in the land. There seems to be this
Yeah.
like devilish stuff in the landscape itself and in nature that reaches out and is trying to attack you. It doesn't seem like sin is just a subtraction between you and God. It seems like sin is an active, productive thing in this world. And it's really creepy. It's very different, I think,
Yeah, I
from
mean, I
Lear.
would agree. I mean, I think that it is his most demonic, I suppose, in that sense. And I would say that I think the implication here is that the devil in the form of the women tempts him, and they give him a prophecy. And I think there's even one of them says it, that they what they're going to do is give us trifles that are true and use that to entrap us to pursue evil. I think it's Banquo says that. And it might even be Macbeth who says it. I can't remember, but I think that's what's sort of going on here is this idea that if he doesn't, would he become king if he doesn't listen to them? I think there almost seems to be, and especially this is true in the Kurosawa one, there seems to be this implication that if he didn't, he probably would have eventually become king. And even when he does become king, if he didn't stop trying, if he did actually just make Banquo's, if he didn't fight the prophecy and just make Banquo's son his heir, then the problem would go away. It's because he's tempted to do evil because of the prophecies. And so I think there's this sense that yeah, the devil is sort of twisting things and sort of setting up sin. And once you've chosen it, you're damned. There's nothing you can do. There's no sense of any redemption. There's no sense that Macbeth could ever stop now. Right? There's no sense. This is why I think it's different from. This is why I always find Romeo and Juliet annoying because Romeo and Juliet just has the sense of there's no sense there. Like if that letter had just got delivered, they would have been fine. There's no sense here that with Macbeth that if he just if he had just let bygones be bygones with Banquo, everything would have been fine. There's no sense of that. This is going to go badly. Like it's going to blow up on them. And so there's essentially, yeah, a sense of despair. There's no sense of redemption. There's no sense that anybody or anything can save him once he's gone down this road.
Yeah,
Uh,
and he knows it. There's a
yeah, and
certain
he
point
knows it now
he
too. Yeah.
knows it where he's so far in blood that he might as
Yeah,
well.
I can't go back because if I go back, I'll just get more blood. So I might as well just go forward
Yeah,
because I'll get the same amount of blood. Doesn't matter what I do.
yeah, and even when he discovers Macduff was not born of woman or from his mother's womb untimely ripped, he's not. He keeps going straight ahead. I mean, there seems to be a sort of almost relief in the fulfillment of the destiny. Yeah, so he is he is the most demonic character, even more so than Richard III, who Richard III at least Richard III
Richard the
seems to
Third is the devil. It's as
he's
if he is the
yeah,
witches. He's just the witches being allowed to be king.
yeah,
That's the sense
and he's having
there.
fun.
Yeah.
Richard is having
So are the
fun.
witches. The witches are having
Oh,
fun
yeah,
too.
Richard's having a great
That's what I
time.
mean. So that's why I think the difference is. It's as if it's the actual demon, the actual devil has become king in Richard the Third. In this sense, it's just the devil has manipulated the king.
Mhm. Yeah, no, that's good. That
Because
is
the
good.
only other one I was thinking about this, I think the only other one that has any sort of demons, direct demons in it, is our favorite play.
Mhm.
Do you remember which one?
Which one has demons in it? No. Does Timon have demons in it?
No, Timon doesn't have
I
demons.
don't think Timon have demons in
Remember
it.
Joan of Arc with her
Oh
demons,
God, yeah.
right?
Henry the
That's
Sixth
the
Part One.
and in Six Part One. I think that's
That's
the only other one.
right. She does. Yeah, she's tempted
She
by.
has her
Oh
demons.
man, I was in this play. I forgot about it. Might have even been in the scene. I
You
was
might
I
have
in the
been one of
scene?
the demons.
No, I wasn't. I was the bastard. I was like a companion who was
Oh
the
yeah.
bastard. Yeah.
My gosh, I kind of forgot about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
very long play.
Yeah.
I did like that theater. Anyway, but the yeah, I think those are the only ones that have literal demons,
Mhm.
like sort of demonic figures.
Yeah, and
Um,
it's not unusual in the time. You think of like Dr. Faustus. Dr.
yeah, and
Faustus
that's
has
what I was
the
thinking. Like
devil
Dr.
coming
Faustus
at
has it.
the
Yeah.
end.
But that's why I think it's interesting that Shakespeare never really used that, but I think it's a relatively common trope.
Mhm.
And he doesn't really use it except in really those two instances. Um, in one
Yeah.
of his worst plays, and arguably his flat out worst play,
Mhm.
and one of his better plays. So yeah, I don't know how we got on demons.
Yeah, that's fine.
I lost track of
Yeah.
this
No, we were talking about
thought.
the kind of Manichaean nature of the
Oh
world. We're
yeah, yeah.
talking about the devil as king versus the temptation. This sort of nihilism is embedded also in the sense that he can't, like Richard III, enjoy his conquest and his evil. He's sort of ruined by his evil. He can't. I mean, Richard III also can't sleep, but you get the sense it's because ghosts are haunting him, like they're just keeping him awake. It's Macbeth can't sleep because there is I don't want to call it guilt. There's almost like a sense, or like a sixth sense of terrible destiny. Like he's just trapped in this destiny and he can't stop thinking on it. Or
Now
he,
keep in mind other Shakespeare figures though who were perfectly. There is an interesting thing. Here's an interesting paper someday writing about sleep in Shakespeare because Henry V talks about how he can't sleep either, and how he
oh, the
says,
night
I wish.
before, yeah.
Yeah, he says, well, he says in general, I wish, the lowliest slave does his job and then goes home and sleeps in Elysium. And that the king is just constantly having to think about things. So there is this sense that all royalty sort of has, that they can't sleep. There's this sense of that, but obviously the sense of Henry V's lack of ability to sleep and Macbeth's inability to sleep are different.
Hmm.
That would be a good paper someday.
That would be a good
Uh,
paper. Yeah, yeah. It's the kind of the burden of responsibility. Um,
But they
I guess
both have the burden of
they both
responsibility,
do. Yeah.
but why is one of them sort of a noble lack of sleep and one of them is a demonic lack of sleep? The idea would be that even if Macbeth was a good king, he should also be unable to sleep, but he should be unable to sleep because of worries about his kingdom, not about worries about himself, maybe.
Yeah, I suppose it's one is a sort of social concern, one is a private concern.
Yeah.
And that's the tragedy of great men. The tragedy of great men is a turn from the social to the private, right? Hamlet is concerned about getting revenge on his uncle, regardless of what that does to Denmark. Othello is completely lost his the management of his post because he's worried about his wife. And then, but with Henry V, he is successful because he's worried about the glory of England. And then that's the problem with Richard II. The Richard II, he might be concerned with England, but he doesn't know how to be. He doesn't know how to separate his own kind of poetic nature from the hard grind of politics. So I think once you become a social thinker, you're a more or tend to be more of a successful politician. You are a politician. And then if you're concerned with yourself, you are bound for tragedy. Lear is a weird case because would you call it concerned with himself or he's just stupid? He just makes a
I mean, he
stupid
is.
decision.
Yeah, I mean, it's concerned with himself in the sense that he is king. Should be king. He can't just step away from it because he wants to go party with his friends and be, with his knights.
Mhm.
Like by doing so, by giving up his authority, but still wanting the respect, he has essentially conflated his own respect with the duties that he
Mhm.
should be performing.
Yeah,
He
he wants to
sacrifices
sleep.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah, he wants to sleep and he's king. He shouldn't. I think that's the failure there, and I think that's the turn. and it leads him. It's part of his inability to sense people, to sense, including himself. He can't. He's terrible at analyzing people, including himself.
Yeah, that's
That I
yeah.
think would be. I think that
That would
would
be the
be the
argument there.
argument.
And that makes Julius Caesar all the more interesting because the tragedy of Brutus is somebody who
He's the opposite.
he's
Yeah.
the opposite. He probably was thinking of a Rome he thought should be protected, but maybe it's the Rome that isn't
Well, I think
can't
the
be
argument.
anymore. It's been a
Well,
while
what I
since I've
think.
read it too, so
Yeah, the argument I think you would make for him, if you were to go with this particular argument, is that he has a misplaced sense of duties. His duty is to Caesar. That's what he should pivot towards. But he does, I think you could make the argument that he's prideful, and so he wants to sort of relive the glory days of his ancestor Brutus, the Brutus who had struck down tyrants. And so he wants to do the same, even though that's not the duty he owes. He does not owe that duty to the Republic. He owes his loyalty to Caesar, and he sort of mixes them up and for his own personal sense of historic glory. I think that's how you would probably make the argument. I think that's what's going on.
yeah.
Is that he's fighting for something he shouldn't fight for. But there's a different sense of nobility there. Like what he chooses doesn't feel wrong
Mhm.
in the same way.
Yeah, there's a good argument for him doing what he's doing.
Yeah,
And that what you said makes sense. It's also Cassius has the wrong motivations, and Cassius is pushing him towards that. So
yeah.
you could
Well,
see it.
that's the thing. That's what the other conspirators sort of manipulate in Brutus. That's how they convince him. Is basically saying like, don't you want to be like your great ancestors? Like, don't you want to be glorious too? Don't you want to stab a dictator? Don't you want to like a tyrant? Don't you want to kill a tyrant? I think that's what they're appealing to. But it's sort of hard to disagree with that impulse. And I don't know, maybe that's just maybe that's just living in America.
Mhm.
Maybe that would be you could see that as more of a evil impulse in Elizabethan England.
Mhm.
You should not want to kill the monarch. It is not something you should strive
Exactly.
for.
Yeah, I mean, it may not be either or, right? It may just be we try to put these things into schemas and into
Yeah,
categories, and I think the reason why we keep returning to these places,
they
they
don't. Yeah,
don't
they don't.
allow that. They don't allow you to be comfortable in that way.
We should really get to the movies. We were
Well,
talking
yeah,
about Macbeth itself
yeah.
and very
So
tragedy in general. So we
let's
should get
go
to the
into
movies.
Throne of Blood. Kurosawa's
That's
Throne
a
of
it's
Blood.
a great movie.
It's a
It's a beautiful
great
movie.
movie. It was the most expensive movie in Japan of its time.
It's a beautiful film. It's
Yeah,
really stunning.
it's real. Yeah, the witches scene is
It's so good.
gorgeous.
That's
Yeah,
the big thing I want to talk about.
yeah. Go for it.
I love the witches scene. It's funny, I didn't know the subtitle was what did you call it? The Castle of the Spider or something like that?
Yeah, that's actually what the Japanese translates into the Castle of the Spider's Web.
Yeah, which way? Because I'm like, there's something very spidery about her. Like, obviously, just the way she's kind of spinning the webs as she's sitting there and the sort of motions of it. And it reminded me when you see Lady Macbeth later, which it's these like, she's so spider-like, and then she doesn't move, obviously, for most of it. She just sits, and it's very, we've all seen spiders, you see them on the web, they don't move. They just sit, and they wait, and they wait, and they wait, and they wait, and they wait. And then when she finally gets Macbeth to sort of agree, it's as if there's like a spider in the web, and she's like, "Thunk," and she bolts, and it's just like a spider. It's like the same thing when a fly gets stuck in the web and the spider goes "Tick, tick, tick," tick," and it immediately moves.
Mm.
It reminded me a lot of that, and I thought, oh my God, like, again, that can't be accidental. He's
Mm.
clearly using some sort of spider imageries here, so it's interesting to hear that that's the thing. But yeah,
Yeah.
that scene is so really good creepy the first time. Even and the second one is good too. It's a little more over the top, but the first one is really good.
Yeah.
Um,
It's apparently based upon that character is something apparently they would have recognized in Japan. It's a character from a No play called the Black Mound. So it's a demon character that jumps out at the heroes in that play. Um, but it's still like you don't really know what the gender is.
no,
I
I thought it
thought
was a man for
I
most of
thought it
it.
was a
Yeah, until he
man.
says the woman. Yeah.
The one there's a rumor that Kurosawa nobody has proven this or disproven this, but there's a rumor that Kurosawa overlaid the voice with a man's voice in order
Okay.
to create this. What he would do is he would take out notes or take out sound from the voices so that the voices would go higher or lower. So he took out a lot of treble from Macbeth. So over time, he takes out more and more treble, so it sounds more and more like he's grunting, like bass
Yeah,
grunts.
that's interesting.
And I think that's he's doing something. If he's not overlaying it with a man's voice, he's doing something like that with that voice. That voice is intensely, intensely creepy. And yeah, you're right. The Lady Macbeth, it's a good thing. His direction to her was don't blink. That's what he kept telling her when they were
It's
filming.
not a
It's just
surprise.
don't blink. And I love when she gets, I think she gets the poison, right?
Yeah.
And she gets up and she's doing like a no walk. Apparently Kurosawa just loved no drama. And he tried to synthesize it with contemporary acting styles and Western plays and whatever. And so she's doing a no walk in order to go get the stuff. But also she's walking that way realistically because her kimono's so tight. She just can't move her legs. And the sound of the
Sound.
kimono as she's
Yeah.
walking into that room is
It's like really good.
it's so good. And then she comes back. They have the same shot of her going in and coming out in
Yeah.
reverse. Oh, it's lovely. I think
But
that
even when she goes to take the spear back and put it in the hands, and you just have her walking across the court, they're going. It's like, oh gosh, that's great. I mean, the sound is really good. Um, and I like when they meet the witches. It almost has the second time when he meets the spirit in the woods, and she sort of has the like. It reminds me of like the backward talking, in
oh
David
oh
Lynch
Twin Peaks.
in
Yeah.
Twin Peaks. Like it has that sort of like quality when it's like, oh, so you got what you were after. I give you my congratulations. Like it just has that just really creepy quality to it, and just the way the voice sounds, it sounds like the backwards talking kind of thing. I think
Mhm.
there's some really good stuff going on with that. That's the best part of the movie, I think. But
Yeah. I think that is the best part of the movie. I like the action scene conclusion, the
yeah,
over the top, the thing. It's a pretty famous action sequence, and this is where Macbeth dies, and basically his soldiers turn on him,
yeah.
and so you don't have a Macduff figure in it, so it just the soldiers shoot arrows at him. Apparently, all of that was just they really shot arrows at him.
Hmm.
That's how they did it. Now, initially, Kurosawa's plan was to have the try out the extras and see who shot the best arrows, and then just have them shoot. And apparently, Mifune said, "No, you're not. That's some random extras shooting arrows at me." So they hired people who shoot arrows from horseback. They ride horseback without holding the horse, and they shoot arrows. And there was a school there, so they hired them. But those are apparently real arrows they are shooting at him from, to kind of close him in and
Yeah.
whatnot. And he's covered in wood blocks, so when the arrows hit him, they're hitting into these wood blocks instead of him. But
Yeah, I don't
it's
think I would trust that, but
yeah, no, because somebody asked him in I think the New York premiere, like, "Wow, you acted scared really well," and he's like, "I was scared, He's shooting arrows at me. I wasn't acting at all. I was terrified." Um, but it works really well, and
it does. It's a good sequence.
yeah, it's
I
over
mean,
the
there's nothing that doesn't work, I don't think. I can't think of anything that's just even the feast scene with the ghost is pretty good. Like, there's nothing really that I would be like, oh, that didn't work. Like, I can't think of anything that was felt out of place or that, well, yeah, you could have cut that. Like, I really can't think of anything.
yeah. I know, I agree. I think, and it's beautiful looking.
Yeah,
He
it's
built,
stunning. Yeah,
I think the what do they call it, the North Castle or
the North Castle and the Forest Castle.
the
Yeah.
Forest Castle, yeah. The North Castle, I believe, is built right at Mount Fuji. They just
Mm.
threw that thing up. And it was the most expensive production in Japan at its time. So he'd done Rashomon and then he'd done The Seven Samurai. And basically he spent a lot of money they did not recuperate on The Seven Samurai, but they knew that it was going into New York in I think in 58, and this was being filmed in 57. So they're like, what, it's going to make a ton of money in America. Just give him a blank check to do what he wants to do. And this is what he did. But those scenes on Mount Fuji, it looks
It looks
gorgeous.
beautiful. I mean,
Yeah.
just the woods. I mean, the woods look beautiful. All it's just so many shots are just. I've never seen a Kurosawa film, so this is my
Yeah,
first
you
one.
have.
Yeah,
Didn't you see you saw last season, didn't you?
Oh, right, we did do that one. I totally forgot about that.
Yeah.
That was 2 seasons ago. Oh, so
Oh,
that's
two
true.
seasons
This
ago.
isn't my first. This isn't my first Kurosawa film.
Hmm.
Totally forgot about that one. That was also a really beautiful film. Kind of forgot about that
Stray
one.
Dog was the.
Yeah, I totally forgot about that one. And that one is also really beautiful. There's some really lovely stuff in there too. He's clearly just he's got an eye and just an ear. Like there's just a lot of really wonderful stuff.
Yeah, the Burnham Wood looks great.
Yeah.
I think that's the best I've seen in any film depiction of the Burnham Wood.
Of the Burnham Wood, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's
It never quite works. I've always found that,
yeah.
that's supposedly I've read that that's why Tolkien was really bitter when he was reading when he either saw or read Macbeth because he thought that was such a cop out. So that's why he had the Ents attack that
Mhm.
because he was like, you know what, I'm gonna actually have the forest go. And so he actually has the forest go to Helm's Deep and kills all of it. So it was just like I'm gonna actually have a forest go
Mhm.
and attack. Like that's a cop out.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay. I'm a little less upset about it than Tolkien, but whatever. Yeah. So yeah, excellent, excellent movie. I love this one. I would still say High and Low is my favorite Kurosawa. This is pretty close,
This
though.
is a pretty
This
darn
is a
good movie, yeah.
pretty good movie. Should we move into Mr. Polanski's
Yeah.
Blood and Guts one?
Yeah.
So this is made 71. This is the first movie Polanski made after the Manson family killed his pregnant wife.
Oh, I didn't know that happened.
Yeah. So Sharon Tate was his wife. She was pregnant with his
I didn't know
child.
that.
The Manson family broke it in December of 1969 and murdered them. And
Yeah, I knew the Sharon Tate story. I didn't realize that was his wife.
that was
I
his
didn't know that.
wife. And this is the first movie he made after. And so,
Ah,
yeah. He kind of commented on, he said, if I made a comedy, people would say I was being insensitive. So, but if I make a bloody movie, people will say I'm being affected. So I don't care. I'm just going to make the movie I want. Still, it's a particularly bloody
bloody.
version of
Yeah,
Macbeth. I think it's effective, and I think there's a lot to be said for it. It's a pretty clean adaptation.
it's
He's
pretty straight. I don't think he
yeah.
does really anything unusual.
No, he's mostly just cutting for
Just a little bit
time.
plays with some of the witches. Yeah, some time. He plays with the witches more the whole coven there instead of just three of them. But
Oh
for the
yeah, they
most part,
expanded. Well, you
yeah.
have
But for the most
Hecate
part.
in the play, right? You have a fourth witch
Oh,
come
I
up.
forgot about her. Yeah, but I mean, there's not. Yeah, but
Regardless, there's
they
not.
give a whole coven.
Yeah, there's
There's
not a
like this
hundred
whole.
naked
Yeah,
chicks. And,
yeah, 100 naked ladies down there, but which is fine. I don't think that's
Mhm.
that's just they couldn't do that on stage. This they can do, so fine. Um, no, I don't think it's pretty straightforward. I don't think he does anything particularly off key in terms of adapting it. And I don't like I'm not a big fan of violence in movies. Like I'm like a lot of the times I'm like it's just
Mhm.
gross. Like like and this movie it feels less gratuitous because that sort of is what it is. When you watch a lot of the horror movies, I'm like, well, this is what the grossness is the point. Watching Paris Hilton get crushed by a dog door, is that is the point of that movie.
What movie
House
is
of
that?
Wax. House of
Oh, I
Wax.
haven't seen it.
Oh man, it's really bad.
Yeah.
But
But that happened in Scream. Didn't that happen in Scream?
oh, maybe it wasn't. Maybe that
That's
was.
the
Oh, maybe it was
garage
Scream.
door
I'm
that
thinking.
kills
Oh, so maybe I'm
what's her name?
confused.
Oh, whatever.
Oh, maybe I mixed them up. Then
Mhm.
I don't remember. I know Paris Hilton dies in that movie. For some reason, I thought she died. But no, you're right. Maybe I'm confusing with Scream. But anyway, you get my point.
I do.
It's just like the point of those movies is to just watch the blood and gore and get creeped out. And it's kind of like that does not appeal to me very much. But this one is sort of like it doesn't appeal to me. But I think that's the point. You're supposed to dislike it. You're not supposed to want to watch it. Um, and so in that sense, it's sort of like, well, it's not particularly appealing, I get it a bit more. Um,
It's a vicious Macbeth, and it's
yes.
when you see some of his, like, if you see Rosemary's Baby, which he made before, I think he made before this. I think it's a '60s film. Yeah, he made it before it. Rosemary's Baby is about the devil, be like a woman's impregnated with the devil, and there's a bit of, I don't think there's a lot too much violence, but there's some nudity and some weirdness. But it's also kind of silly and fun for that reason. It's a bunch of like old Jewish people who are trying to get this young woman pregnant with the devil. Like
Yeah.
it's like kind of it's a little goofy, but it's effective. This movie though is just he doesn't miss an opportunity to be as gruesome as he can be.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, even when you have Macduff's family killed, right? As that woman's, as his wife and as his children are being killed, which happens on stage, you hear the sound of raping in the hallway outside of their room, and then of course you
Yeah.
go right in and watch
You go
it,
right
and
in and watch the rape.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then you also have throughout it, there's a kind of visual touchstone of bear baiting, which if our
Yeah.
audience doesn't know, bear baiting, it was popular in Shakespeare's time. It was when you had a bear fight a pack of dogs and bet to see who would live. And we have a bear baiting scene, and we see bear baiting training going on in Macbeth's castle. There's also even the when Duncan visits, the animals are everywhere, and they're just picking up the animals to slaughter them for the
Yeah.
food. There's a lot of focus on that. And you hear like the pig noise as they're trying to get the pig to kill it. So it's just there's just a lot of that kind of violence. And even the witches, when we see the witches at the beginning, they have a man's
In the man's
arm
hand.
that
Yeah.
they just bury on the beach. And when you see the witches' coven, they're all nude, and they're all older or middle-aged women, so the nudity doesn't have a sort of sexual charge to
Titillating.
it.
Yeah. It's not a titillating effect.
No, it's sort of grotesque. It's intentionally grotesque, and yeah, so the movie has this kind of wild bloodbath feel to it, and even Macbeth's death is. He doesn't just get stabbed; his head gets cut off, and then we see his head, and
Pretty good head, actually. It was a
yeah,
pretty good fake head.
yeah, it was.
Usually they look pretty bad. That was a good one.
Yeah. Oh, speak of which,
Oh, do you have your head? Oh, there it
yeah,
is.
there it is. There's the
Yeah. Was that
There's
chalk circle? Oh, the
Chalk
pig nose.
circle.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
chalk circle. Yeah,
that's
look at
chalk
that.
circle. There I am. Audience, I'm showing Pat a fake head that was made of me when I played a character who was beheaded in a play. So that fake head doesn't look quite as realistic, but
No, that's
it
but
was also on
no,
stage. So
yeah, it was also on stage, but and it was Brechtian. It was just it's an excuse for poor production values. But the thing is, yeah, it's a very bloody movie. The contrast works though to some extent because I mean even it opens with like them, literally the guy kind of like struggling to get up from the beach and somebody else just taking a mace and smashing him in the back with it. I mean it's pretty gruesome. Um, but I think when when they contrast it with like sort of how beautiful Lady Macbeth is dressed, and sort of just how I mean a lot of the people are very attractive people, and their dress tends to be very attractive when they're not murdering people. So there is a good contrast going on there. And I think they're pretty good performances, although I hate the voiceovers. He does a lot of voiceovers where they just stare at Macbeth and they just have him turn his head around and look at things and say the monologues over it. I hate that. Like, just have him do it. Um,
this
I
is
don't
something
know.
that started with Olivier. Olivier did this a lot, and I think it was just he thought it was a way of making Shakespeare into film. This is something you could
Yeah,
only do on film, so we're going to do it good and hard. I don't know why this hasn't died. Why we realize this is not
it's not
necessary for cinematic
good. Well,
language.
but Branagh doesn't really do it. I don't think. I don't
Maybe,
think
yeah, well,
Branagh
maybe
does it at
Branagh is the
all.
one who's like, okay, no,
We're getting rid of this because I don't
yeah,
think Branagh does it at all.
that's true.
And that's why it sort of maybe that's why it bothers me. Maybe it didn't bother people until Branagh stopped doing it, and then it sort of was like, oh, we don't need to do that. And so therefore, it's sort of like, no, we understand that he's not talking to someone in the room. We've got that. Like that does not require you to see his head. Like I understood he was not talking to somebody else. We all got that convention. So I don't know if that was part of the situation, but that bugs me. But I feel like the performances are generally pretty good.
If,
Um,
I think John Finch is as
is he
brutal as
Macbeth?
he's Macbeth. Yeah,
Yeah, he's good.
he's good as he's a really good physical actor. He's a good like the fights he's in look like
Yeah,
badass fights that he's really doing, and you could really believe this guy goes into battle and slaughters a bunch of people. It's a lot harder, as great as Ian McKellen is or Patrick Stewart, to imagine Ian
yeah.
McKellen rushing into battle and really, really kicking ass. And Finch is a physical actor, and those fight scenes he's in, they look
They
great, and
look good.
he
Yeah.
looks good. Like I could see this guy. It's like, yeah, he's a tough mother you know,
Yeah.
to deal with. And he's also the other side to it is he's very regal, right? He is a royal person, and this is the thing. Like when I was watching Denzel Washington do it, Denzel Washington is not, and that's I maybe that's just who Denzel Washington is or a choice he's making, but he's not like kingly. And Finch's brutality doesn't detract from the fact that he's still kingly. He's part of this upper crust. And so he's able to balance these things. Now, is he making these kind of transformative speeches? I don't know. I
No.
don't think so. But he's perfectly good in the role. As is Francisca Annis, the Lady Macbeth.
Yeah,
I
she's
think she's
very good. She's
very
very
good.
good. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's as you're saying, it's the contrast there is she's really pretty
Yeah, she's a very pretty woman.
and really delicate. And so when she's, plotting these murders, that contrast is really, yeah, it's really, and for Roman Polanski, who enjoyed his time with women, you can imagine that kind of attitude bleeding in. Yeah, she's great, and she's nude in the scenes when she's trying to wipe off the blood from her hands, and the nudity doesn't feel exploitative. It makes it just seem more. I didn't find it.
Yeah.
Maybe you
No, I didn't think
disagree.
so. No, I would agree.
Yeah, it made her feel just much, much more vulnerable. It also made her feel closer to nature, which I think in Macbeth world, the closer you are to nature, the worse off you're probably going to be.
Yeah, I mean, there's a direct parallel between the witches and her at that point.
Yes, yeah, that's true. Yeah, she's kind of becoming more of a witchy woman. Um,
I
so
mean,
like,
there's almost a sense that I don't know that if she doesn't kill herself, she's going to go join the witches. Like that's almost feels like what's going to happen there. Um,
the other thing we should talk about is the ending. So they take liberties with the ending, which is when Donald Bain, the younger brother of Malcolm, is riding along and he hears the sound of the witches. And that's how it ends. You presume he's
oh yeah,
going
yeah,
to
yeah. I forgot
see the
about that. Yeah,
witches
yeah,
at
yeah.
the end. And so in typically in tragedy, the evil is crushed. A lot of good is crushed, but so is the evil, and the good can live on after, right? The Fortinbras figure comes in and
Yeah.
is going to start a new good thing. This movie does. This movie ends with another bad thing is going to happen, and in fact, actually, Donald Bain, the real Donald Bain, did stage a revolt against. It wasn't against his brother. His brother had died by that point, but his brother's children, and started a civil war, and did kill, or rather, banish his brother's wife and his brother's children, and did take the throne. So there's some
The
historical
historical
grounding.
America. Yeah.
Not that that really matters. I mean, who cares? But the point I'm trying to make is this world is actually bleaker than the world of the play.
Yeah, I mean it's hard. I mean, part of it, yeah. I mean, I didn't really think about that, but yeah, I mean that's certainly true. And I mean, part of the bleakness is just when you show all the. I mean, we talk about the violence in the play, but you never really see it. And I think when you show it so graphically, it does. There's just no way you're going to have a more. Not to say that Macbeth is lighthearted, but you're not going to have a less stark world.
Yeah. Yeah. This ending, though, is especially like there's just no hope.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah,
No, I
there's
agree.
no hope here. It's just going to keep going and going. Um, I did think there was a little bit of cheekiness to it too. I think like with the scene with the mirrors, where they show the vision of Banquo, in which the different they jump from mirror to mirror to show Fleance had a little bit of a kind of funny, zany feel to it a little bit. It's a very brief moment, but
Oh, I
that
didn't
actually
remember
kind
that
of
at all. I think I just missed that
oh the
entirely.
mirror thing.
Yeah, I think I missed it.
Oh, there he has a dream prompted by the witches where he sees the is it prompted by whenever he sees different mirrors of different kings and it leads back to
Oh, I guess I
Fleance.
kind of remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. But I remember just the last king who he sees just kind of this big smile and points to the mirror, and it kind of made me laugh out loud. I don't. Anyway, it's not a big deal one way or one way or another.
Speaking of laughing out loud,
Yes. So
um,
our final transition.
yeah.
Okay. So we have Scotland, PA, which was made by Bill Morissette and starring James LaGrosse as Joe Mack, Macbeth, and his wife Pat Macbeth, played by Maura Tierney, who was married to the director at the time. I
For a
think that's
while, when it first came on, my wife and I watched this one,
hmm.
and I thought, is that Jennifer Aniston? Like it, we both were like, I go,
Is
it
this
looks,
Leprechaun? Are we
but I
watching
go, it
Leprechaun?
looks like her, but it doesn't sound like
No,
her.
it's the news radio lady.
Yeah, I know, but I try not to like take the phone out in the middle of them and looking up. And I was like, I gotta look this up because it's not. I'm like, who? It can't be Jennifer Aniston. I thought, oh, it's Tierney. I was like, okay, I do know her, but it really, I thought for a while it was. She reminded me of the Jennifer Aniston in Office Space. Like it just had that quality to it, and I thought, is it Jennifer Aniston? I don't think it is. It clearly wasn't. But anyway,
She's good in it. She's
yeah,
to a point. I mean, so it's a lot of the movie made me laugh. The joke gets old.
yeah, that's the problem.
That's the
That
problem.
is the
It just
problem.
doesn't. It
It
doesn't
just keeps
last.
going.
Mhm. And so relative. I mean, it's only like about 90 minutes long. I think it's not that long a movie, but the humor doesn't sustain past about 45 minutes.
No, that was exactly gonna be my comment. In the first like 20 minutes of it or so, I thought this is my kind of movie. Like I especially like again, I like actually what they do with the witches to some extent. I love like carnivals and I love the idea of like abandoned carnivals and that's like yeah, if you're gonna have modern witches, that's the modern, Heath. Like that's where you're going to meet witches in the modern day is at a carnival on a and you're going to have your seance done on a cup ride. It's just like that worked for me. I really actually like that, and I even liked like Banquo sleeping in the back of his truck. Like it does have this sort of Twin Peaksy kind of feel to it that I really liked. I don't like when these movies just become the like find the parallel thing, and they just made some weird choices as the movie went on because they seem to be intentionally dragging it out and it seems to be the like okay well we know that you're looking for when we're gonna kill Banquo so we're just gonna have like three like 8 minute long scenes where you think we're going to kill him and we're just not going to do it for both of them because we're trying to subvert your expectations which maybe you can do for a brief period of time but not for like 20 minutes and
The hunting scene's bizarre.
the hunting
Like
scene made no freaking
it doesn't
sense.
do anything in the movie. So, audience,
No.
there's a Banquo character, and because we know what happens to Banquo, there's a suggestion that Macbeth or Mac wants to kill him because
I had no idea why you wanted to kill him.
it seems
No
to be
idea.
the fishing lure they throw out there is that Banquo doesn't understand why Mac never told him his idea about a drive-through, and therefore,
We should probably explain the basic premise of the
okay.
movie since we haven't done any of the how this is Macbeth at
Okay,
all
okay.
and how it's being modernized. So
So
let's do
this
that
takes place
first.
in 1975 in Scotland, Pennsylvania, which if you've ever been to Scotland, Pennsylvania is not the most exciting Scotland. And the idea is that there's a fast food restaurant called Dunkin's, and Mac and his wife work there. And he's the line chef, and she's like a waitress or something. And they find out that the manager is stealing, so they get him fired and they get promoted. Mac does to assistant manager, and they decide that they want to do a French fry truck, but Duncan, the owner, doesn't want to do that, and he wants to start a drive-through thing using using part of Mac's idea. So they decide what they're going to do is they're going to steal his money from his safe, and then I make get the fast food truck or what have you, and then kill him, which they do. They sort of accidentally kill him, but they sort of intended to kill him anyway. And they end up taking over the fast food restaurant. They call it Macbeth's. The Macduff character is played by Christopher Walken, who's a police detective trying to investigate the murder of Duncan. Duncan's children are involved, and
There,
they're there.
they're there.
Um, and Banquo's his friend, and the parallels are pretty close.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's even a Ross, right? I think
Which
the
one's
guy
Ross?
who's cheating on his wife is kind of a Ross guy,
Which
kind of a
one's
Ross maybe.
Ross? Which one's Ross
Oh,
and
Ross is the one who he's the one who tells Macduff that his children have been killed and his wife's been killed.
oh, I can't remember which character he is. in the Scotland PA version. But
Oh,
anyway.
I think he's the tan guy. I think he's the guy who's
Oh,
like,
that guy. Yeah, yeah,
oh,
yeah,
what
yeah,
was
yeah.
the name of his tanning place? It was really funny.
It was a really good
Oh, I wrote it down.
it was a really good name. Um it was very clever. But it so there's a lot of parallels and the
When a
bar they go to
tan loves a woman.
when a tan loves a woman. Yeah, that was it. It was a really good name. But it's like, they go to the bar they go to is called like the Witch's Brew, and the witches are three hippies that hang out at a carnival. One of whom is played by Andy Dick. But there's the parallels, and so you're spending the whole time waiting for the parallels to come up, and that's the problem with the Banquo thing. Like they go on a hunting trip, and you think he's going to kill him on the hunting trip, and then you think they're going to kill him, and they're going to have him OD on drugs later at the house, and you think they're going to have him kill him there, and then they don't kill him there, and then finally they take him to a garage where a homeless man is, and they then have, I don't know if the homeless man shoots him or whether they shoot him and then the homeless man and frame the homeless man, but it was just kind of like, my God, it just keeps going. And it was just like that whole sequence was like, I mean, I get why you're doing it, but the joke doesn't work for 20 minutes. Like it doesn't work while we're all sitting here. We all know you're going to kill him. It's not funny to just drag us along just to pad the runtime. It just doesn't work. There's only one moment where I actually did think it was kind of funny when they do that when they're he goes to meet with the witches again and they're like, that Macduff is a problem. We have to deal with him. And they're like, you could kill his entire family. And they go, because that's what I was waiting for, because they have Macduff be like, I have a wife and two kids. I'm like, how are you going under what logic would anybody go kill the detective's wife and kids? And so when the hippie witches suggest that, one of them goes, are you an idiot? We can't do that. This isn't 1,000 years ago. It makes no sense to kill his family. That doesn't solve the problem. And I thought, okay, they at least acknowledged that they're not going to parallel everything because it would be stupid. But they parallel so much of it, and it just kept going that it was the joke got flat. It's funny for about 40 minutes, and then they didn't have the courage to go off on their own, and they didn't have the writing skills to come up with like, why does he want to kill Banquo? There is no reason other than the fact that, yeah, Banquo suspects his wonders like, why did you open the drive-through? You didn't tell me about the drive-through. And he's like, oh, I didn't tell you all my ideas. Okay, well, that's a pretty good answer. There's no reason for that. There's no reason for Banquo to go, he didn't tell me about the drive-through. He murdered our boss. Like that's not the link isn't there. And the only reason he logically could kill him is because Banquo does know that he left a party early and would have had the opportunity to kill him, but so did a dozen other people. So there's all it does is draw more suspicion to him. And so the only reason for him to kill this guy is because Macbeth in the play does, and everybody's waiting for it to happen, and they don't know how to get around it. So it was just they didn't have the courage to step away far enough, and they just kept trying to make meta jokes about it after a while that it just doesn't work.
Yeah, they really should have gone off more in a comic vein. I mean, uh, something lighter. They should have just broken the mold and just left the play behind at a
Yeah,
certain
they should
point.
have left the play
And
after a certain point. And
yeah,
that could have been the joke, is
mhm,
that you could have had a joke where it's like the witches are trying to get him to go and do what the play that would have been funny.
mhm.
If the witches are trying to get him to do what the play says
This
that you
doesn't
should
make
do.
any sense. Why am I doing this?
Why would you do any of these things? And they're trying to tell him, be like, you should murder Macduff's man, and him being like, that's insane. That doesn't solve my problem with it. Be like, you should kill Banquo. And be like, why would I kill Banquo? Like, if you have them trying to make that, see, this is, I should have written this. If they're trying to get it to go back to the play, and he's going off on a tangent, and you're sort of watching how it would play out in the modern day, then you could have actually had something funny. And I think it would have been funny and effective, but instead it just turned into this weird thing.
Yeah, yeah, it dried out. And I enjoyed a lot of the performances, and especially enjoyed that the first part of it up to really the murder of Duncan.
Yeah, I mean the murder of Duncan again. It's actually kind of funny when he just falls face first into the fryer. I mean, I actually did laugh at that, which is probably not supposed to laugh at it, but thought that
Oh, I
was
think it
kind of
is. I think you're supposed to laugh at it.
yeah. I mean, I thought that was funny. I mean, the fact that they're like "Bah, bah, bah, bah," that he falls face, they go, "Ooh, oh, he's dead now." Like, oh, like well, that was actually pretty funny.
Mhm.
Um, that th those all work, and even the again, I liked the idea of her the out damn spot out being that she gets some grease from the fryer, but lands on her hand, it burns her hand, and so that's how she's that's the spot. And that was clever. Like though you could have kept that. And you could have actually done something really good with it, but yeah, more or less after the murder of Duncan, it just goes off the rails. And then you have like one of the the kids, Duncan's kids, going off and is going to be a rock star, and for some reason leaves his gig in the middle of it to go back to the bar where they're murdering the father, which made no sense. And then the other son is just into show tunes and really wants to sing cabaret. Like it
Mhm.
was just like this none of this works. Like it's just
Yeah. I think they were going for with Malcolm was that he actually didn't hate his dad and he kind of wanted to
no.
make up with him. That-
I mean that's what they were doing, but
yeah. And it also doesn't, him going back doesn't help, right?
no.
Does he, well, no, he does because he
He sees
sees
them,
them driving.
but none of it really mattered.
Yeah,
Like
it
even
doesn't.
if he didn't, the rest of the story would have gone on as it did. It's just like there were too many things where it was like you have too many motives here and too many just coincidental things that never really added up
Mhm.
to a
Anything.
plot.
Yeah. Though I did when he goes, every child likes football, and you
Yeah.
cut to his bedroom and he's listening to Joni Mitchell, and
Yeah,
there's
I mean
a
that
yeah,
was pretty funny.
there's a
Like
cabaret thing in the back. Yeah.
he goes, he doesn't even like, yeah, he goes, he doesn't even like football. That's ridiculous. Every boy loves football. And I'm like, that was funny. Yeah. I mean, it's not to say that it doesn't work, but that was one of their things where they were like trying to depart from sort of the standard scripts, and then they just didn't do anything with it. It was just sort of like plopped out there and then they just kept going back to the joke. It was like, no,
Yeah,
the
the
joke
joke was repeated way too many
it
times.
was just sort of like, no, we get it. It's funny. Like it is
Mhm.
funny that the dad wants him to play football and he's sitting there listening, yeah, to Liza Minnelli. Like
Mhm.
that was sort of funny. And then you did it, then you went back to it again. And when Macduff comes, these guys all his friends over and they're all singing Into the Woods or whatever it was. They're
Yeah, it was no
wasn't
day
it
by
Sondheim?
day, day
Oh, it was
by
Day by Day. Yeah, it
day.
was Day by Day.
Yeah, and then
Um,
but then you do it again when when the detective comes back over and
yeah.
he's with the boyfriend.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the boyfriend is there. And I'm like, there's only so I mean like the I mean, I get it. It's the early 2000s, and gay jokes were a little more acceptable at the time. But it's sort of like even then, there's only so many times you could just keep going back to the same joke. We got it. The other brother is gay. Like we got it.
Mhm.
This isn't funny. Like
Yeah.
it's not working anymore. And yeah, that was the problem. I like my idea. They should have had the witches trying to get him to follow the plot and him going off on his own thing. I mean, like I'm running a restaurant.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep murdering people.
Or, I mean, I don't, maybe you don't have it as murder. Like they can be Machiavellian, but they get him fired or they get him
Yeah.
locked up. So, something where you're just like the stakes aren't everybody dies. It's,
Yeah.
the guy temporarily loses control of his restaurant, something like that. And then you could, I don't know, you can enjoy it a little more. But I think you're right. I think you're
Or
going,
you have to just go completely off the edge and just revel in it and revel in the which they never quite did that either. So
yeah, their performances are attempting to be grounded. And I think she is. She's very,
she gives a good performance.
she gives a good performance. And I think
Yeah,
part of the problem is, though, that she goes from being Machiavellian to just kind of being bitchy,
yeah,
which is a problem with the script. It's not a problem with her performance, but it's just she becomes like kind of not fun to be with, and he's not the best actor in the world, so
no,
you can't really you can't invest your emotional energy in him, and so yeah, it kind of bumbles apart.
yeah. But
Hmm. Any other versions of Macbeth? You
I haven't seen. I mean,
no.
I mean, I've seen it on stage three times. I saw the one that we slept through.
With
That
Satan. Do you
oh,
remember
was
that?
Satan really?
Well,
No,
you
was
know
there a real?
Seaton in the
Yeah,
play.
yeah.
Well, in that one we saw, maybe you slept through this. I saw this.
Oh, I
They
slept through this
had
on
him
purpose.
on stage in like a balcony, overlooking everything, and sort of going like, "Woo ha 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 ha."
Oh gosh, I don't remember that. The
Yeah, oh
only
yeah. So
thing
he
I
was like
remember.
Satan, engineering things.
Oh gosh, no. The only thing I remember was waking up for, and probably because they made it very loud, and was the banging on the door,
Hmm.
and then the guy coming out to do the penis jokes. And I just remember seeing that and being like, and I had never read the play, so I didn't know it. And I just remember sitting there being like, wow, I don't understand what Macbeth is about. This guy is just doing a whole monologue about how you can't get it up after you've been drinking. So I'm like, I don't really understand what this play is. And then I think I just nodded off and went back to sleep. That's literally the only thing I remember from that production. Now, granted, that was 20 years ago, but I don't think that was a very good production. So I saw that one. I saw the one, the Shakespeare in the Park that I mentioned earlier, and again, that one was actually pretty decent. And then I saw the Rory Kinnear one, which I thought was just absolute unmitigated train wreck. So I've yet to see a good stage production of it. I don't think I know any other adaptations of it. I'm sure I do, just because there's so many.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen the Orson Welles one from the
Is that
40s.
any good?
It's okay. I mean, it's it feels like a standard film from the 1940s. It doesn't have the same sort of Orson Welles-ness that you see in like his Othello, where there's clearly an aesthetic that his aesthetic doesn't seem to be there. The it's a film stage production, but the Ian McKellen Judi Dench one is worth watching for their performances. They really go to the nines with Duncan as innocent, like he's wearing white all the time, and Macbeth is always wearing black all the time, that type of thing. But you get to see Ian McKellen do this stuff and Judi Dench, and they're quite good. I haven't. I also saw on stage. There's a few interesting things. Ultimately, didn't like it, but the Patrick Stewart production, which I don't remember her name, a really good Lady Macbeth. The one they did a few tricks which worked, but they're tricks. The Banquo scene was interesting. What they did there was right at the scene break, the stage was this big table, like a reception table, and they had an elevator, so they had people going in and down the elevator, which was positioned center upstage. And at the right before the scene break, they're having dinner, and then the elevator comes down, the door opens, and Banquo comes out and like walks across the stage up to Patrick Stewart's Macbeth, and they they then do the scene. They have the act break. They come back and they do the scene again, but from the perspective of everyone else. So no one's talking, and they're just looking over at Macbeth saying things, and it was effective. It was
Yeah.
like, yeah, it was an effective strategy because it actually kind of works when you don't hear anything and just hear his lines because everybody's just uncomfortable. The problem with that is that a lot of the play now is that scene. So there's just an unmitigated amount of time devoted to that scene as if that scene's the linchpin of the play, which
Yeah.
maybe you may argue it is, but it's, kind of, I don't think so. But that was a cool trick they did, at least. And I have seen a bit of the Denzel Washington one. I'm not a huge fan of it, but I like some things, especially the witches. I think the witch stuff is really cool in that. So it seems to be the most adapted of Shakespeare's stuff. It just works well on
It just
screen.
works well. Yeah.
Yeah, it has a lot of plot. It has a lot of blood. It has a lot of excitement. You could see why there's a ton of productions of this on screen and not so many As You Like It. So stuff happens and people die. If you enjoyed Macbeth, check out these adaptations. The Charlton Heston 1947 version, Orson Welles' 1948 version, Trevor Nunn's 1978 version starring Ian McKellen and Judi Dench, Judith Curzel's 2015 Macbeth starring Michael Fassbender, a Brazilian version which also came out that year, as well as the Joel Cohen and Denzel Washington and other people's 2021 Oscar-nominated expressionistic Macbeth. You also have the gangster Macbeths, Joe Macbeth from 1955, and Men of Respect from 1991. And then here's another version I saw, the Bollywood Macbeth, directed by
Oh, interesting.
Vishal Burjawah, titled Makbul. There's also the Lady Macbeth movies. There's two of those that exist, though they're based on a novel, which is a sort of adaptation of something else, but regardless, I'm going to move on. You can rate and review this show anywhere fine podcasts are available. For those viewing in YouTube land, if you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the Talking Studios channel for all our exciting content, and follow us on social media at Talking Studios. Check out other shows by Talking Studios, including Talking Pictures Trivia, where we explore movies through trivia, Keep Making Movies, where we explore micro-budget films, Limited Lexicon, where we play through text-based adventure games, and Get the Point, where we slowly reveal a movie poster and try to guess which movie poster it is. Got a question for us? Call the Talking Studios hotline at 201-467-8679 and leave a message. It may be featured on a future episode. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to Adapt It, wherever fine podcasts are found. Join us next time when we discuss Hamlet, the Laurence Olivier and Kenneth Branagh versions, as well as the movie Ophelia from 2018.
Wow, Talking Studios.
Next week we'll be discussing Hamlet. Pat, if you could play one role in this play, what would it be?
I always forget that we're doing what if you could play it, not what would you play.
You can do either or. There's no rules.
If I
on
could
adapting.
play any role in this, I would play Claudius. I would play Claudius. That's what I would play. I think he's much more fun than Hamlet. But what would I probably play? I'd probably play Rosencrantz or Guildenstern. Like they could just be no one even knows who you are, and nobody would care about you if it weren't for that stoppered play. I think that's the only reason that they even really matter. So I think I would get one of those, but I would like to play Claudius. I think that would be fun.
Claudius would be fun. I think with the way, especially, well, we'll get into it. It's just like if you play him like he has a genuine affection for his wife, it works really, really well.
Yeah, there's a lot of Well, we can go.
Yeah, we'll get into it. What would I play? I probably end up being cast as Horatio. I think I would. I think I make a good straight man, and he's kind of the universal straight man. Poor Horatio.
Horatio doesn't really have any memorable lines.
No, he's just
I guess he's got the something is rotten and no, that's not even him. That's the other one, isn't
Is
it?
that
Something is rotten in the state of Denmark.
Mercutio or something?
That's
Yeah,
one of the
other-
other guys. Yeah, that's one of
Yeah.
the other dudes.
Yeah, I mean that
Marcellus.
Marcellus. Yeah, I think also Leontes. I could see myself playing that role.
Laertes, you mean?
Leontes, excuse me, wrong.
Different
wrong
play.
Different play. Laertes. It autocorrects on my texts to Leontes for some reason. But Laertes would be something I would play. But probably somebody who plays Laertes could also play Horatio. I think both of
Laertes
those
has a
roles-
lot more range.
He has a lot more to do. Yeah,
He has a lot more to do. You could be a good Laertes.
I think so. Yeah, I think that would be a decent role for me. I think when I get older, maybe the Player King. Except the Player King has that like absurdly bad speech about Priam and Hecuba dying, which I didn't realize how bad that speech is. But
Incredibly long,
it's
too.
incredibly long. Yeah,
Laertes might be right on that one when he's like, "Stop, we've heard enough."
Yeah. Oh, not Laertes.
Excuse me, Polonius. Oh my
Polonius,
gosh, we're doing
yeah.
terrible on this.
Yeah, this is
there
a
are a
good
lot of
start.
names. There's a lot of names.
Audience, we watched like 8.5 hours of Hamlet in the last 2 days.
Yeah, basically, the last 2 days.
Yeah.
I watched an inordinate amount of it, and they do blend a little together. The
Yeah.
names.
Yeah, it's we'll get into it next week, but I think by then we'll be recovered from our Hamlet slap happiness and ready to go.